So, welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. Tottenham are nearly back, and we're kicking off with a game against Hearts tomorrow, which we'll be previewing on today's episode, discussing the signing of Archie Gray and who else we need to be signing urgently. We'll also be talking a bit about Rodrigo Bentancur and leading on to the Copa America, because we now have two players in the Tottenham squad who are 2 times winners, and Giovanni Lo Celso was crucial with a key assist in the final. And to discuss it all, we have Stu over in Dubai. How are you?
Good. Glad to be back with all of you.
Good to be back. And we've got Johnny over in Dublin. How are you, Johnny?
Glad, mate. Yeah, I'm good form. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Doing well.
Commiserations on the English outcome, by the way.
We're all bored of international football. We won't be discussing that today. And we have Deej over in Austin. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time since I've been closely following international football because my country is terrible. But hey, both of our countries are now top managers.
Hey, so, you might be taking on our manager. So
don't put that evil on me, please.
We'll take Jurgen, and you can have him. But shall we kick off? Shall we kick off with tomorrow's game, guys? Just a little. I know it's only a friendly, but it's just important to discuss. We've also just recently played Cambridge and won 7-2, and there seem to be some signals based on the lineups from those games that Archie Gray may well end up actually playing right back and some other questions. But it seems like we should get some answers tomorrow, because the only players missing are going to be Mickey van der Ven, Romero and Dragusin. But apart from that, we will actually have a full squad for the game. But
not quite.
Not quite? Who else are we
No,
missing?
well, Doggy's still not fit after his operation, and apparently Dragusin didn't play at the weekend, so there's a bit of doubt about him. So I think otherwise, I think everyone else is in action.
But it is so us to already have a defensive injury crisis at this point of the season, right? We're missing 3 centre-backs and a left-back. So
that's the only reason we haven't sold Emerson Royale, because we did them for the friendlies.
True. And yeah, well, we recently had an 8 million. It ended up, the bid that we rejected was 8 million euros from AC Milan. So you can see why.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous in today's markets. But do we expect Ange to go for a semi-serious lineup, or are we expecting him just to throw a bunch of kids in and try some experimental formations? What are you guys expecting?
I guess it's probably something from semi-similar to how the Cambridge United game was played. Obviously I didn't watch it because I couldn't, but from what I've read, at least, it looks like we played a stronger 11 in the first half and then let the kids play in the second, more or less. And I think that'll probably be something similar against Hearts. I'd like to see a couple of kids mixed in with the first 11, but I can understand why that wouldn't necessarily happen. So yeah, I think that it'll definitely be a mix of strength and youth.
It's fine. But in terms of Archie Gray, I think he's the one a lot of us are mostly interested in. Do we expect him in the coming season, based on what we've seen so far, to be a player that goes into the midfield, or are we looking at him and saying that's cover now for Porro and, someone that's going to replace someone else in midfield like Basuma? What are we thinking?
And at Leeds, he was used far more in midfield, and obviously his skill set seems to be does kind of make a greater impact in the middle of the park, but it's also the way that the fullbacks are inverted. The more that those things are more transferable or more required in that position too. So his strengths are his vision of, from what I've seen, what read as well, that his vision and his awareness, his passing range, and his ability to more as a playmaker than anything. So I think that from what that is, I suppose it's more likely, but then I guess the competition possibly there is going to be, and maybe mean that he's going to be more rotational option also with Porro, because we've got a lot more games this season with the Europa League, and maybe go further in the cuts too. I think there's going to be, because of that European football, there's going to be a wider range, and his flexibility or his versatility is definitely something that's, I would assume, has been identified as a key asset of his. Although from what I see, definitely you sort of feel he's going to make a greater impact in midfield. But probably tomorrow, I'd say, because of the situation we have in defence, that Royale's going to be in the middle and he's going to be using on the right hand side of defence.
Do you think, Stu, the criticism, I think there has been some valid criticism in a way, that spending £40 million on a teenager who's got lots of potential may not have been the correct move versus what we needed right now? Or are you thinking it was the right decision to
I think
take that transfer
that
strategy
we always
with Archie
complain
Gray?
that we don't buy the Whartons, the Easies, the Olises when we should. So when we've actually done it and we've coughed up big money, so also we've been criticized, Ange also fairly in the past for not investing enough. We've coughed up a lot of money for what everyone is convinced is a surefire star of the future. Honestly, don't see how you can criticize it, because if we didn't get him now, he'd be costing 100 million plus, 2 or 3 years. So you either do it now or you're never going to get him. Let's be honest, of what we are. So I think it's a good move and shows a lot of ambition by the club. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Where the frustrations is there's also noise coming out that we're going to sign one more attacking player, according to Ali Gold. And people are saying, wait a second, we're doing all right in midfield. We've got Basuma, we've got Bergvall, we've got good Saar, we've got good players in there. But the wide players and the centre forwards are where the immediate glaring gaps feel like they are. But I guess it depends if your view is that signing Archie Gray means we're not going to sign those positions, or whether we feel we're still going to go and spend 40, 50 million pounds on those other roles that we probably need as a slightly higher priority than that position.
We need a striker. But if you look at the amount of players we've got for the wings at the moment, we've got Werner, we've got Solomon, we've got Kulusevski, we've got Johnson, we've got Mikey Moore that everyone wants youth to play. And from what I understand, he's expected to play some games this season. So we've already got 5 players just there. Then we've got Son as a backup. We've got a lot of players for the wing. So unless we're going to sell a couple, why on earth would we buy anybody? So the only attacking role that I see that needs to be addressed is a striker. So if we're only going to buy one, it makes sense.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I guess when you look at last season, the length of absences Richarlison had gave this false impression we didn't have a left winger in the squad, and Werner was our left winger.
We also had the Asian games, and we also didn't have Werner. So we did have. I think that we kind of addressed a lot of our forward deficiencies just by having players back, and obviously with a player like Richarlison, unfortunately, you can't necessarily count on him being healthy the entire season, which is why I agree. I think we do probably need another number 9. But we haven't really been linked to one since some really, really shoddy links to Jonathan David. All of the links for attacking players from what I've seen have been wingers, like Eze and Doué, things like that. So I'm interested to see if we're just keeping our number 9 search really quiet, or if we're actually just going to buy another winger and just move Sunset permanently to center forward.
It is connected to the just new way we do transfers, right? I try to think back of no one saw Archie Gray coming. No one even knew who he was. And now everyone's excited by this, future world-class player we've just signed. And the same with pretty much every signing under Ange. Mickey van der Ven came out of nowhere. He was this terrible option because we'd bottled Tap Sober and we hadn't taken that transfer seriously enough. But the reality was we'd completely pivoted away from that signing and focused on someone else. And it feels like the journalists just don't know who we're going after. No clubs really. The only club that have made significant moves this summer was a flurry of activity last week from Villa. But that came off the back of selling their best player and going, we need to really quickly invest some money here. So you wouldn't say they've massively strengthened. They've spent to tread water, effectively. So do you think activity is going to ramp up significantly now the international games are over, Johnny, and the pre-season start? Do you think clubs will be suddenly kicking into gear to buy and sell?
I mean, I suppose logically, yes, it's going to be a lot easier to do business because those tournaments are finished. Obviously, also Ange has been consistent in saying that he wants to get players in as early as possible, and I think Ali Gold was saying recognises that, and probably would have liked incomings already than we have, because really Gray's basically the only incoming. We've got Berg's joined squad for the first time offset, and I think he has potential to be a really significant signing. Maybe not so much at the beginning, but I think there's a promise there. But I suppose, yeah, I mean, we just look back over our dealings over the last couple of years, and I think most Tottenham fans who are rational have a significant level of trust now that there's an infrastructure in place that will actually go through the processes you need and make the investments that are actually have come up trumps. So on that basis, with the manager we have and with Langdon in there, I think that I would be hopeful that we'll have a couple of other decent signings in before the season starts. I mean, I guess the thing is also, like, in the past, I remember it was at the last World Cup, or I think it was the last World Cup, and Tottenham had more players involved than any other Premier League team, apart from Man City, I think probably was, until the later stages. Whereas this time around, other than Romero and Lo Celso's probably not really, he's probably going to move on. Other than Romero, none of them have really played that much. I mean, Van de Ven was in the team that got to the semis, but he didn't get a lot of game time. And then St. Jackson had a really good Euros, actually. He made a really good impression, I think. So we got more players back earlier, and hopefully we started off the season well last year, but hopefully we'll be even better next. So yeah, maybe a long way of answering a simple question, but I think that we will. I think there'll be a couple of others coming in before the season starts. And obviously that's my influence. So, I think that we have to hope that the club is going to try and deliver that for him, and that things are just happening under the radar.
Well, Stu, I've got a question for you now, mate, rolling on from what Johnny said there, and because you followed these players before we signed them. But given how Dragusin and Romero performed in the international tournaments, if we hadn't signed them when we had signed them, and we were suddenly looking at them now, what do you reckon they'd have cost?
I mean, Romero would be unaffordable. Dragusin would be looking at plus 40, 50 million.
Yeah. I think it's like some credit to the recruitment team that we've managed to. Yeah. It's so hard to get the balance right of signing a player not when they're still breastfeeding, but also signing one so they're good enough they're just on the precipice of turning that corner and everyone else going, damn it, we should have signed them. And they've still got 3 or 4 years left on a contract with you, so you can milk their capability for a while. Look, if someone like Romero ends up going to Real Madrid in 2 years' time for 100 million quid, we've definitely got a massive value out of it. And if we continue to do transfers the way we're doing it, you've got that bench of talent like Dragusin coming through to replace them. It's just smart business in the way that Brighton have always done things. It's you've signed the next guy before you've sold the one that's eventually is going to leave in at some point.
The other thing as well, Jim, is like I think we've improved removing players that are not going to be a part of the scene. I know there are other players that are still like regularly on and quite very heel and so on. But obviously then Dumble's situation, I don't think many people were confident that he was not going to be out on loan, and we'd be kind of still having the spectre of his presence on our team list as such. Harris gone to AZ Alkmaar, which is a great move for him, I think. He wasn't going to make it at Tottenham. He's going to still be Ireland's best striker for a while. Joe Rodon's gone to Leeds. Eric Dyer is obviously now off the books and has joined Bayern, which is plenty for him. And Tanganga and Sessegnon have also left. So there's like 6 players there that we kind of dealt with. And, I think, I'm not sure about whether we're more willing to compromise in terms of fees that you're going to take. But I think there's definitely been a reticence in the past to move players on, get rid of them. And I think that's a really positive sign as well.
I think that's
especially the wages that's offloading.
Exactly. Even these players we see as like, Sessegnon, he's still going to be on 20, 30 grand a week minimum. You times that by Tanganga's another one. You add all these together and you're saying, okay, 200 to 300 grand a week's worth of players have left. That's like a Rodri or a Harry Kane type salary player that's not Snickle Fritz. Is that the word?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to think now. So, Deej, in your opinion, who's next priority to get out the door? Because that's just as important as getting in the door, right?
Yeah, I think the next priority out the door is probably one of our midfielders, probably Højbjerg or Lo Celso. Not because I think they're bad players or anything, but because I think they're both in the last years of their deal, if I remember correctly. And I just think that I'd like to get some sort of fee for them, and they obviously, if reports are to be believed, would like to be elsewhere right now. So I think it would probably be in the best interest of both parties if we could set up a deal for one, if not both of them, and then bring in players. To
Yeah, with them, it's funny. We said a year ago we were all hoping to get 20, 30 million each for those guys, and now you got in 6 months, overseas teams can offer them a contract for free. So realistically, we're looking at minimal fees just to get them off the books now.
Yeah, but the 20-30 million fees were never realistic unless the Polina thing happened with Bayern and Fulham were super desperate. I don't know, especially today, no one's going to buy from Tottenham in the Premier League. Well, few teams are going to buy from Tottenham in the Premier League because you don't want to give money to a team that you're competing against. And then overseas clubs have just all been broke since COVID, basically. With those kind of fees, just I don't think are very realistic unless they were going to go to Saudi Arabia.
Fair enough. And I think it'd be good to round out the transfer part of this to discuss. Each one of you ask, what is the most important position we need to sign? If we signed one more player, this whole transfer window, so disaster window in the eyes of purple and gold. But to be fair, it would be a pretty bad window if we did sign just one more player, unless it's Mbappe or something. But who would it be? We'll start with you, Stu. You're on mute, by the way.
Just one or two?
I'll give you two. Go on, we could sign two more.
Still would like, because I think our problem is not necessarily, I still fancy Sonny or Richarlison to be able to put the ball in the back of the net. I still think creativity is a problem, and I'd still like to bring in Easy, and I'd still like to bring in Edison. Easy, I don't know. Easy.
Is it Easy or Eze?
Eze, whatever his name is.
Eze.
and Ederson.
Sure, Eze.
So 6 and a 10.
Interesting. Actually, I thought you were going to say.
Well, I want Lautaro Martinez, who I said before that the Copa America. Exactly.
Yeah, but that's like your fancy sign. That's like the celebrity you're allowed to take on a date or whatever it is for your wife agreement. Deej, what about you?
This is difficult because I don't know. I am probably a little bit higher on Basuma than I'd say most people are. So I don't think that upgrading the 6 is necessarily our highest priority. We've got a lot of the reason it's so difficult is because I think we have a lot of areas that you could definitely argue for upgrading, but you could also argue for keeping the same for a season. And because of that, I'm going to, if I were a GM, that's an American term, but I guess if I were the manager, and I was making one more signing, I would probably take another signing for the future and Desiree Doué. I know that he's been linked to Bayern now, but that's not been a problem for us in the past, and I don't know. I just think he's really good. I think that the way to replace Son is to buy a player who plays in his position and is young enough that we won't have a minutes crisis immediately. And someone like Doué is like the perfect age range for that, I think. So I think that while it wouldn't necessarily, he is quite good. I think he would probably get minutes this season. You could argue that it wouldn't super strengthen the squad immediately, but this window so far, if you include Bergvall, has been not necessarily about strengthening for this season. It's been strengthening for 2 or 3 seasons down the line. I think that a signing like that would fit with the vision of this window really well, I think.
Johnny, what about you? You there, Joe? There you go. Most important position for you, Johnny?
Yeah, I don't think about the Doué as I think they'd be great additions to the squad, but I wouldn't see them as the priority, to be honest with you. And I also think we've got better chance of getting Isaac, but then obviously his fee is going to be an issue because it's a lot of money for his release clause. Doué is apparently wanted by some really big name clubs, so he's more likely to go to one of them. I think that we need a 6, and I think we need a striker. Those would be my 2 priority positions. I'm not sure who the striker would be because there's nobody really obvious, like from within England, like Tony and Solanke, that the ones that are being named all the time. I'm not massively excited by either of the I definitely think everybody knows he's got an attitude problem. Even seeing him like sulking on the touchline at the Euros, I don't blame him for sulking the touchline, but his attitude compared to Watkins was very, very different. His whole demeanor, and I was just looking at his sour face, like, oh, I don't want him with a cockerel in his chest. Thanks very much. So I don't know who the striker would be. I think with the sixth, like, Edison's a good shout, and I think there's like Anana. I know was like on the verge with Philip, but it hasn't been done yet. So if we could pull off like an Archie Gray hijack the way we did with Brentford, to the best of my knowledge, I did look it up earlier today, and he's not officially joined or anything like that. So he's obviously some of the Premier League experience in that position, and I think he'd be a really good addition as well. So I definitely think that we are a bit. I think it's a very important position, and Basuma, if he always played like he started last season, then great, but would definitely really the cover that the defence wasn't getting from that position. It was very costly throughout the season last year. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm not in the mindset that we desperately need to upgrade the first 11. I think like the first 11 itself, when everyone is fit, and that is Son on the left, Richarlison up front, Johnson, I know he's controversial, or he's still not, on the right. Maddison, and we're overloaded in midfield with loads of good players. And then we've got, obviously, Udogie, Van der Ven, Romero, and Porro. Like, the starting 11 of Vicario is good enough to get us back into the top four, which is the next step for this season, is get back into the top four, and then the year after that, challenge for something. I think that's good enough. Our issue is the depth and lack of players we can rotate in with confidence. So therefore, I'm kind of thinking it's similar to Arsenal. Like, I don't think Martinelli had, like, I used to re-rate him, but I thought last season he wasn't very good. Arsenal should be like him. Saka's, there's kind of like star man, but he's not tearing teams to shreds and banging in 20 goals over a season. They've got lots of 6, 7 out of 10 players, but they've got a very good deep squad. So they've got players like Trossard who they can bring on. And you think it's not amazing, but he's a better option than Werner is, in my opinion, to bring on. So I think like more of those kind of upgrades on the backups, which are affordable and doable. Ideally, younger players who can grow in and replace those and improve the first team. So I'm kind of thinking, if we go into next season, we have to have a backup for Udogie, because one injury to him and all of a sudden the team's lopsided. Everything's disaster again. You've got Emerson Royal playing left wing back potentially. Like, you can't compete in the Europa League, FA Cup, League Cup, and Premier League in that situation. So I think a backup wing back is pivotal, crucial, in my opinion. That's why I thought we might sign Eiling Jr. because he can play up further upfield, and also as a wing back, I thought he might be a good signing, but Villa have got him. And yeah, I actually really think Eze, again, I know he's expensive, but he is just about within reach of someone we could afford. Because I think Maddison, again, we were so reliant on him, and as much as he gets injured, when his form drops, the whole team, it just falls apart. And to have someone rotating in those competitions. So I'd say that backup wing back and that 10 competition for Maddison, who they could also play on the wing, right, Eze, so you've got someone there as well, is crucial. I know a lot of people don't like Tony, but I think he's not worth 50 million quid. But I think everyone's going to sit around as late as possible and then say, here's 15 million quid. Do you want it? Or you can just let him go for free, and Tony's going to throw his toys at the pram and demand to be let go. So I think if that scenario happened, he would be a good fit, partly because he is ready-made amongst a lot of young players we're signing. And he's a narcissist by the looks of things, but he seems like the type who thrives under being the main man and being like, you are the main man in this massive 65,000 seater stadium for a big football club. You've got the chance to show the world you're much more than a Brentford player. I think he could thrive under it and really be someone we enjoy in the big derby games and stuff. Just imagine doing that no-look penalty to Arsenal, like, and winning again. He's the type of player who would do that, and you'd just be like, thank God for your arrogance. Almost rather the arrogance than having this mentality I've had before in the squad, which has been to crumble under pressure and fall over your own feet and give away a win to someone like Tony. I'd rather have him on our side. And I think if Arsenal get him, he's a big upgrade on Nketiah and Jesus. There's much about them not getting him.
Yes.
But personality-wise, he suits them much more because he's a bit of a knob.
my thoughts. But
In-depth
The
analysis.
other thing that's going to be really interesting is, I mean, you're right to say that the incomings, the two big incomings at Bergvall, I know he signed in January, but Gray being so young, like we obviously have the president with Dele Alli. I know that he was a very unique kind of player, and that doesn't happen very often. But I look at both of those, especially Gray with the experience he has in the championship, and he does look physically. He's got a lot growing up to do. Hopefully, he's not going to be anywhere near like a Brian Heel, kind of just lots of skill and falling over all the time. But I'm really hopeful. I'm really hopeful with Archie Gray in particular. But Bergvall's technique and skill and confidence seems to be for somebody of his age, seems to be really, really very, very exciting. I'm hopeful that one of those two, if not both, are going to have a really big impact and make more of a difference next season than we might kind of hope if we're being totally objective. And obviously, I'm not objective, but I'm quite hopeful that's going to be something we're waxing lyrical about throughout the season. Just going to put that out there and hopefully not jinx things by saying it out loud.
Yeah, I think he's probably the one I'm most excited about seeing next season, but it's easy to forget him because we signed him the previous season and he's been out on loan. But yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see what happens to that midfield because we've got 5 very good players who would all argue they deserve a spot, well, 4 really. And when you look at Sarr, Bergvall and Gray, like they're all so young, it's going to be, it's going to be a really
We also
good
skipped
time to be in the Europa League
from,
in a minute.
Mr. Devine.
Got you.
Yeah.
And Devine as well, yeah. And it does seem like youth is going to be given more of a shot this year. It seems that they've identified 2 or 3 players that are going to stay versus go out on loan, and those players are going to get some minutes, which, like you said earlier, Stu, I think that might be why we haven't gone really aggressive on, say, a left winger. It might be that we feel we have that academy product that it's, a Mickey Moore, wherever it is, that deserves those minutes now to show they are that person before.
Speaking of which, Mikey Moore scored in the friendly.
Transfer. Yeah.
And Will Lanchester signed a 5-year contract as well last week. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he's full of goals. I don't know, is he going to go on loan this year, do you think? Like, Championship side or League One side, maybe? I think his performances last year were amazing. Like, he's a goal machine last year. So, that's exciting. That players are still persuaded to sign longer contracts, younger players, in spite of the fact that we're bringing very young players who are more, especially with Gray, more experienced at a higher level. That there's still academy products who still have confidence that they to make it at Tottenham.
Yeah.
Just really encouraging to see.
You see the same article, don't you? Players about to leave, then has a conversation with Ange and signs a contract.
I wonder if
Exactly.
that's what happened to what's his name, Frankie Day, who apparently was going to leave and now has come back.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Ange apparently put him in with the first team for a week.
Yes.
And they changed his mind. We did do an episode before the international break just on how much we could spend as well. They just haven't heard it. So we've figured out with Ben using the PSR guidelines in our latest accounts. We are expected, based on what we put together, to be spending around 150 million, which is consistent kind of what we're spending recently. We've already spent 40 on Archie Gray. So there should be, we thought, there's going to be 2 or 3 30 to 40 million pound signings, and then 1 10 to 20 million pound signing. But if you want to watch the episode, it's not out of date, it's still in date, so you can find it on the channel. We worked out how much we could spend. But so it does imply we've got 2 or 3 more spots. So that it's reasonable to say backup wing back, backup 10, and another forward player is achievable, assuming that we do get out this last little bits of deadwood as well. So guys, do we want to just, before we finish up, talk a little bit about Bentancur? Because I feel like he's had a mixture of rotten luck and made rotten decisions over the last 6 months to a year. All coincides when he grew his injury beard. That scraggly little rough thing looks terrible, I think. But he obviously did his ACL, completely out of his control, terrible luck. Comes back, gets a foot injury, terrible luck. And then he makes these comments about Son and politics aside. We won't dive into that in too much detail, but that was not a clever thing to do, regardless of the circumstance. In my opinion, you've got to be more self-aware that that's not something you should be saying. even if it's a friend or whatever. And then he's seen throwing 2 glass bottles into a crowd of people that injured them. And I appreciate that. The context of that was fans were storming the pitch, players felt threatened. But as I understand it, I don't really see how that's dispelling a situation. But let you guys say should we, I guess the big question, elephant in the room is it time, do you think Spurs are going to quietly push Bentancur to one side, potentially look to exit in this window? Or is there a path back for him from all this? And I'll start with you, Stu.
I don't think we're going to kick him out. I think ultimately, if he's good enough, we'll keep him. I think you look at the likes of Liverpool, Suarez, they defended him to the hilt, and what he did was a million times worse. I think he was very stupid for what he said. I think throwing the bottle into the crowd also wasn't the cleverest thing to do, but I also think he was injured, he couldn't run. And I think in the heat of the moment, his brain wasn't thinking, and he was just throwing something at people who were attacking his family. Again, not condoning it, very stupid thing to do, but I don't think we're going to kick him out of the club for that. I think we'll bring him back. If Ange sees that he still has the talent that he had before, we'll stick with him. I think if he shows that he doesn't, Ange will be more than happy to.
What about you, Lige?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the thing with football, isn't it? It's like we've seen ad nauseum that it doesn't really matter if you're good at kicking. Like that's really what it comes down to, and everyone wants to believe their club is different, but they're not. They're all trying to do the same thing, and that's win ball games, and everything else is kind of secondary. I think that the stuff that Bentancur said was stupid. We've all I think we all agree on that. I think throwing the glass bottles into the stand also pretty stupid. Though, like Stuart said, at least I can understand that one a little bit more, because I don't know, that whole situation was just a mess from all sides. But yeah, throwing glass bottles into a crowd of people is still not the thing to do. Regardless, just do what Eric Dyer did and just run into the stands yourself. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely been a year to forget for Bentancur, to put it lightly. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if we got a good enough offer, maybe we would move him on. But I don't think that any of the off the field stuff is gonna really be brought up in conversation for like whether or not he should stay. Even if I even kind of wish it was.
And Johnny, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not really going to diverge from that. He's 28 years old, so you should have a bit more sense. I guess when you're in a semi-final, you've had a disappointing outcome and all of that, you kind of be a bit more emotional, and we all make mistakes and do things we shouldn't do, but like it was an incredibly stupid thing. Even if there were good intentions, I'm not sure. We were having a conversation on the WhatsApp group, and people making the argument is to like defend or whatever. I'm not really sure how throwing a bottle actually achieves that. And apparently it was a fellow Uruguayans that he injured as well, so obviously he didn't succeed with his intention. I'm sure that was certainly not his intention. But yeah, I don't know. Equally, we've had so many cases, haven't we, over the years when like foreign players gone back to their original country, have had an interview in their native language, and with a journalist who's also from their country, and they've said things that they wouldn't say in English in an English press conference or in an interview with the English press. So yeah, it's happened. It's not that was poor. That was really poor. But clearly, Sonny knows Bentancur. They seem to be like most of the players that certainly publicly they seem to have good team spirit, and he's been in the squad for 2.5 years. I don't think that Sonny is bearing grudges, and the Sonny statement was really well worded. I think he was very forgiving and decent about, but also recognizing it was a cock up. So like whether there's been any repercussions in terms of suspensions or not, I mean, although there should be something, I would say, because you can't condone that kind of behavior in both cases. I think he should be punished. It's going to be 2 different bodies, one on the scene that's making the judgments, not the international, the English, I presume. But I think as far as Tottenham are concerned, he's too good an asset to not support, and you do have to support your own. He's sort of held his hands up and he's apologized for the, misdemeanor, certainly what he said about some, or what, yeah. So you do have to sort of support your staff, support your team, and give him the opportunity to learn from it. And I think that's the right thing to do. And clearly he is obviously a really good footballer. Hopefully he'll get back to what he's capable of doing. So yeah, pretty much the same as Stu and Keith. I doubt if you're any different yourself, Jim. But
well, there was also another incident there. He did also beat his chair into smithereens. Not too much outside the door. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of feel like there's three things there that, like, as I think Stu mentioned his age. Was it you? Someone mentioned he was 28.
Guys, how many players have smashed their chair or whatever? I mean, come on. Let's not blow things out of proportion.
No, that's a small thing. But I just think when you combine that, I think the Sunny one is bigger in a lot of people's view than it was. It was brushed under. It was actually should have been taken a bit more seriously in a lot of people's views. I'm not saying what our views are. I'm just saying what the context is. I think that's a big mistake he made. And then the bottle one is another. That is a big mistake because you could really kill someone. Lobbing it is actually generally that serious to do that. That was, and then it's a bit of a cowardly way to deal with the situation. I don't see how throwing a bottle at someone in distance is showing bravery and protecting your family. I just think that's a bit of a weird thing to do, just throw a bottle and run away. But equally, I think it's fair to say he's a human being and you just generally do sometimes make mistakes that are unintentional. And I don't think it's anything. It's not like a Thomas Partey. I don't even compare these situations because they're all so different. But I kind of feel like some mistakes players make are to do with their personal lives and their international bodies are there to deal with those things. They're irrelevant from the club. Like what happened with him out on the Copa America isn't really a Spurs thing. That is something for his country to sort out with him. It's not really a Tottenham thing in my view. The Sun thing is very much a Tottenham thing because it impacts a Tottenham player and it's between Tottenham players. But yeah, I don't think any of them are in a situation where we're going to be like, we can't have pictures of him in training. He has to just go. I think it's a case of let's see how the next 6 months go. But equally, yeah, if I was him, even if we haven't really said what he wants. If I was him, I'd probably be saying, I think I need a fresh start. Sometimes when things just go that way, you buy a house and everything starts going wrong. You buy a car, everything goes wrong, or something works just endlessly bad luck after bad luck, and then you make mistakes and you self-inflict. So you just need a fresh beginning. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's what he wants. But look, if he wants to stay, I don't think we should force him out the door. Don't know my thoughts.
Yeah, the only thing that I can see being an issue is if it's for some reason creates a negative locker room environment, in which case I do think we'll probably move him on. But I do think that this international window has kind of screwed his chances of another contract unless things massively change in the next 6 months.
It sounds like the new transfer policy as well is back to what we used to do when we actually signed good players, was younger players focused. When they hit a certain age, you stop offering big long-term deals so much. So I imagine it's Son, it's different, but for Bentancur, you're not going to say to him, here's another 5-year deal at 28. He might get a 1 or 2 year extension at best. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I think that was it. Unless anyone had any final comments. If you want to watch the game tomorrow, by the way, if you don't have Spurs Play, I've looked it up. You can get it on the Hearts version of Spurs Play on a one-off monthly subscription, so you don't have to sign up to the whole year of Spurs Play. So there's a little hack there if you're listening to this and wanting to watch the game tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time. But any closing comments?
Problem with that, Jim, the only problem with that is that you're giving money to Hearts, and I wouldn't as somebody to travel down to watch Birmingham games. It's definitely not something I would be in favour of. So no, I don't do that. Just sign up.
Pay Uncle Daniel.
Spurs. Give money to Daniel. Yeah,
that's Daniel. Yeah.
I would before we wrap up. We've talked a lot about kind of negative international football, but I just want to give a shout out to the Tottenham players that did play well in international football. I mean, obviously, it's been kind of a while since Romania were knocked out, but while Romania were playing, Dragusin was excellent the entirety of the tournament. Mickey van de Ven didn't play as much for the Netherlands, but he was decent when he played. And then obviously Lo Celso assist in the final. Romero was just another incredible performance throughout the entirety of the of Copa America, and continuing to show why he's one of the best center backs in the world, in my opinion. So yeah, it wasn't all bad. It was really just one guy.
No, I'd way rather on the football side. I think we've had the best scenario possible. Like all our key players, apart from one, didn't play, and the one that played a lot of minutes won a trophy, which is what outcome you want for that player. So I think we're going to go in with a much healthier feeling squad than the teams we'll be competing with in the top four coming season. So.
And the last point, just coming out of the tournament, like I know this, I don't want to sound like I'm the most naive and like ignorant person of all time, but when you've got this ridiculous talent of Yamal coming in and doing what he's doing, turning 17 the day before the final, and it's just like it's like when Luke Littler, the darts player, burst onto the scene in the World Championship, right? And you've never heard of him before. And I knew that Yamal, I'd heard the name and I'd seen bits and pieces with him in Barcelona, but I didn't realize that he was starting every game for Spain. And then not just starting every game in every match in the tournament, but being such a significant contribution in almost all of the games at that age is just insane. And it's sort of like, going back, and I'm not a manager, and there's a lot of reasons for that, right? But it's sort of well, if someone could do that when they've just turned 17, it doesn't mean, and I know your Rooneys and everything, there's not many of them around, and your Michael Owens and stuff. But who's to say that an 18-year-old can't make a big impact at Tottenham or any other club? And I don't know, maybe I'm stretching things a little bit. Obviously, I'm not suggesting we've got a Yamal in our ranks. But it does show it's an incredible thing that you've got somebody who's that young that can play that well. And it's just I think for all of us probably as football supporters who just love watching football, to see somebody who was unheard of really a year ago doing what they're doing at that age is incredible. And it's going to be exciting to see what he's going to achieve over the next 15, 20 years or whatever. It's like, it's exciting, especially when you got like Ronaldo and Messi kind of coming to the twilight of their time, and it's really exciting. You've got this lad coming on.
So what you're saying is there's going to be a picture that lives forever of Doggy, Van der Ven, Mickey Moore, Divine, Bergvall, Sarr, and Archie Gray lined up.
Yeah,
I think called the class of 24 that we never knew
exactly,
would come in, which can dominate world football, Barcelona style in their pomp.
Big time.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. Anyway, must jump. Up the Spurs, guys.
Come on, Spurs.